Did you hear the show last week?
Oh, you mean the one where y'all were talking shit about me? That one? Is that what you're talking about? That one? What's up?
Yeah.
Just the intros, man. Your
Why?
intros are
Why?
Your intros are a little weak sometimes. So.
You mean like where I'm announcing the show?
When you're like, hey, there's like I'm one of the three hosts, just me, but I'm the first host, and there's two others, and it's like, whoa, like you don't even sound excited. That's all. We're just trying to kick the show off.
Y'all want me to start like tap dancing on the table? What do you want?
No, I don't want you to be the WB frog, but I do want you to put a little pep in there. You know, let's make everybody be excited. Be like,
tell you what, you give me a template. You show me how you want it to look from now on, and I will do my best to copy exactly your example.
All right, I will be the alpha and lead.
Go for it.
Either I normally 2 shirts it, but I'm just 1 shirt today. And I have my athleisure stuff on.
Athleisure?
Yeah.
No.
Yo, what? Yo, what's up? Mimi, what's up?
Athleisure.
Yeah. What's up?
Sweatpants aren't athleisure.
What is
They're just leisure. Athleisure is like that step up. It's like where you're wearing like an Adidas tracksuit or some shit.
Fabletics.
Yeah. Sweatpants are just sweatpants. Yeah. They're not.
That's not
no.
Athlete. The point of athleisure is like the cross between like athletic leisure and fashion and shit.
Like I'm gonna go to Starbucks in my workout gear and still be cute.
You can't work out in sweatpants?
Of course you can, but sweatpants are not athleisure wear. They're just sweatpants. Yeah. They're just sweatpants. Let's not put lipstick on a pig. They're just sweatpants.
I think you guys are wrong, but okay.
Like you're
He's just trying to goad us.
I feel you.
Just don't give in to it.
Like at this point, it's always 2 against 1 on that show. So
yeah, they should tell you as something.
Yeah, I just never agree with y'all.
When you start arguing with the athletes about athletic shit, we're gonna probably
this is not athletic shit. This is literally a fashion thing. Like this is literally that
having to do with athletics. Athleisure wear is not sweatpants. Sweatpants are not athleisure wear.
Yeah, athleisure wear is like stuff that you can wear all purpose, like anywhere, but it serves those multiple purposes of being really comfortable and good for like
fashionable.
Sweatpants aren't comfortable.
They are
you can't wear them outside. No, it's cool. No, we can start the show. Listen, y'all got it.
Look, man, if you know, you know.
No, it's cool. So, welcome to the 2 Guys and a Girl podcast. I go by the name of Big J. Sitting to the left of me is the wickedly talented Mimi.
What's up, everybody?
Our returning guest, not guest host, but our returning host. We did not kick her out. She was not on a week suspicion. She just, suspension. Well, I can't say the word. Off to a great start.
Too much pep in your step, bro. You're tripping over your tongue.
I have a little tongue. All right. Anyway, so sitting to the left, of Mimi is
Wally B.
No, you're not. What are you doing?
I smiled. What do you want?
Okay. So
I like how she stomped on your feet right there with some boots, shit like that.
These boots are made for walking. But
this is gonna be one of those shows.
Have y'all
today.
been watching Peacemaker?
Mm-mm.
You talking about on HBO?
Damn. Yes, y'all have to watch that joint.
It's
a good show.
Yeah.
That joint kind of took me by surprise.
Okay. Please follow us at 2 Guys and a Girl podcast on Instagram. Please follow us on Twitter at a Girl Podcast, and please follow us on our fan page on Facebook that Mimi doesn't know about. 2 Guys and a Girl on Facebook, and ready to start the show.
You know what's funny though?
What's up? Talk to me.
Mimi would definitely know about it, but since she doesn't, I know this one detail about Mimi.
What that? Oh,
It means that she don't be up in her email inbox for real like that.
I don't.
Yeah.
What?
but it's funny.
You would have known about it had you been
Oh.
up in your email inbox.
But
I
you know
your
what's so
shit look
funny?
like mine.
It's been a minute since I've been on my email, and it's bad. It's bad, but I don't check my emails anymore.
I mean, you know what's really funny is that she actually follows fan pages on Facebook. So
I did
no, that is
One.
true. One.
the one time.
Who was that?
It was Jason Momoa.
Oh.
It was a Jason Momoa fan page, and you know what happened?
I was there.
I know. You want to explain what happened?
Oh, no.
Since you were in cahoots, you were in cahoots with him.
First off, wow! I like how this story changed really quickly. I found out after you did. I had nothing to do with this.
Anyway, I got kicked out of a fan page, and it wasn't even my fault.
Creep.
I left my face. To be fair, I left my Facebook open at work.
No, you actually don't need to even say that. He shouldn't have logged. He should
You're
not have used your thing. Like, yeah, no.
That's the whole point. That's the point.
I've always had that contention. No, please finish the story.
That's the point.
Yeah, don't.
I left my Facebook open at work. I shouldn't have done that. Don't do that. And our boy Steve thought it would be funny to log into the fan page of Jason Momoa, one of the fan pages that I was following, and I don't even know what it was that he said or did. It must have been obnoxious.
I think he said something about you women being losers for following Jason Momoa.
I don't know, but whatever it was, he got me kicked out of the fan page. He got me kicked out, and then I guess he logged out of my Facebook page. So when I went back in and was like looking at my stuff, I couldn't find that fan page anymore. And then when I finally found it, I was like, wait, I'm not in the group anymore. And I tried to get back in, and I was denied access.
And Steve thought it was so funny.
He thought it was hilarious.
And then to be fair, he came to me later. He was like, I saw her face, and she was really hurt that I did that. And then I started to feel bad. And then I told him, I was like, you should have felt bad. Like, you literally went into her thing without her permission. That's like going inside someone's underwear drawer and just like,
start sniffing panties.
Yeah.
Remember that episode of SpongeBob when they were going on a panty raid? Why did they put that in that show?
Why did they put half the things they put in that show? Oh my God. But anyway, the funniest part of this whole story was Steve felt so bad about it that he ended up applying to the fan page, and he got in as a member, and he tried to petition
the leader of it
to get me back in the group. So
she was having none of that. She's like, we worship him over here, and you are not to say, like, she shouldn't have had you do whatever happened.
Yeah, they weren't having it. So I thought the funniest part of that was I inadvertently got Steve to join a Jason Momoa fan page because he was trying to fight for me to get back in the fan page.
All of it was funny to me. All of it was funny. But to be clear, I had nothing to do with that.
I apologize. I jumped the gun on it. I'm still raw about it.
Yeah, because I literally had nothing to do with that. Because I would have, like I said, because I was always pretty clear. I always thought that was wrong. There's way, like, if it be, taking anybody's stuff and using it that way is wrong. Going on anybody's Facebook and writing anything is not the best way of doing it. It seems funny, but outing someone like that isn't good. So, Wally? I'm talking about a story where Wally wrote, "I'm gay," and used it on my Facebook. And I left it up. He's like, "Why didn't you take that down?" I was like, "Because nobody thought it was real except the people that were in on the joke." But I never got any calls or anything.
Which, by your own admission, is the only people who ever comment on your Facebook in history.
Yeah, so
everybody that ever comments on your Facebook was like, "Oh, damn, for real."
Yeah, and those are people. Yeah, and those are the people that were in on the joke. So it was like Anton and Michael.
Everybody who was in my basement when I did that.
Yeah,
shit.
Was that what that snapshot conversation you sent in the group chat?
Yeah,
because I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah, if you looked at those dates, it was like from 2010.
Okay.
So those are very old.
I thought that was recent, and I'm like,
no.
What is going on here?
First off, like I said, I was just completely shocked. I was like, why was she talking to me like that? And why didn't I say anything back? Like, everything else about that made sense. And I was just like, why is she talking to me like that?
Reckless.
Yeah, she's like, no, he's really an effing asshole. And I was just like, whoa. Yeah,
damn.
Yikes. But we have a wonderful show for you today. The content gods have been very good to us.
Indeed, they have.
So this wasn't on the show sheet, but I did want to get into Whoopi Goldberg being suspended for 2 weeks from The View. And I wanted to get into, she said her comments, not because I understand why people get offended by things, because you only go by your preconceived notions about what words mean and what things are about. So I understand. I've said something similar to that and was corrected by a Jewish person at work. Mm-hmm. And I was completely confused about it. But when someone of that group tells you, hey, this is how, they feel, you should at least listen.
Yep.
I was of that mind state, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I just thought Jewish people were white. So, and that sort of thing. But I wanted to get into the words she said, because I think people oftentimes get upset about what people say and don't take into account what the words actually mean and how they're applying them. And so she used the term of race. And could you give me the definition of race, Mimi?
So, well, just to give a real quick, what is it specifically that she said? So give us a little bit more context.
So she was saying that the Holocaust was not a race issue. She said that the Holocaust was a human issue. It was men's cruelty towards other men. It was, so she was trying to make the case that Hitler and Anne Frank, for example, were the same race. And that Hitler was being cruel to Jewish Germans because he was a cruel person, and it was like a human's issue, not a human's rights issue, more than it was a race issue.
Right. So in that case, what he was saying as race, he was meaning as ethnicity.
Well, we were going to get into the definition.
Right. So what race? So and a lot of people tend to use race and ethnicity a lot of times interchangeably, even though they're very different, because race is defined as a category of humankind that shares certain distinctive physical traits. The term ethnicity is more broadly defined as large groups of people classed according to common racial, national, tribal, religious, linguistic, or cultural origin or background. So basically, with race, it's basically being what you physically look like, as compared to your ethnicity, which is the whole thing that makes up a group of people very distinct from a different group of people.
Right.
Not having to do with skin color specifically, because you can be of the same ethnicity, the same ethnic background, but be two different colors.
Yes. Because I can make the argument that Anne Frank is the same ethnicity as an Israeli and Jewish person. They have the same traditions. They have the same kind of cultural things that are going on. They practice Tikkun Olam. They do Hanukkah and all the rest of these things. Mm-hmm. But I would say the way they physically look, their race is different.
Yeah.
And this is why I think, I think what the point Whoopi Goldberg was making was a correct point, for a multitude of different reasons. One reason is if you look at a picture of what Adolf Hitler looks like and you look at a picture of what Anne Frank looked like, they look similar.
Yeah, they do.
And common thing that does not get brought up, even if let's say you don't even believe that. Common thing that does not get brought up with Adolf Hitler is his mother was Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He looks... The reason why he looks like what Anne Frank looks like is because his mother was Jewish. And judging by how Jewish people say how you become racially Jewish is through the mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've always thought that race had to do with what you physically look like. And when people use it that way, I always thought that that's how you were supposed to apply that usage. It's not a situation where you're trying to be dismissive of what happened. I didn't get that from Whoopi's comments. I thought she was saying it was horrible what happened. Now, There are people who like to do tragedy comparison between slavery and Holocaust. That's where you go wrong, because they're both terrible. Mm-hmm. One isn't particularly worse than the other, or you shouldn't even try to comparison shop that way.
Yeah, because the situations are, the parameters behind both of those things were driven by different things, by different modes of, like with slavery, it was literally making someone who looks like you guys work for free for someone who looks like me, as compared to like Hitler's ideology behind, well, if you're not ethnically a German Jew or a German who's not Jewish, then you simply need to not exist. Like, it was never about, like, obviously
He said master race.
yeah, like he
And I
was
think
looking
that's
for a
where-
specific, yeah, that was where, you know, and like,
that he didn't look like.
right, it's like
That was made it even more complicated. He
Right.
was like
The
blonde-haired,
blonde-haired,
blue-eyed,
blue-eyed, like-
which is he did not look that
he
way.
had dark brown hair and brown eyes, and it's
Yeah.
like, bro, can you at least get your own aesthetic correct?
So that's what I'm saying. Even the thing that he described, he was not.
Right.
And so he was using that word completely. And I guess that's what stuck in the zeitgeist when it comes down to history, is why people think it was a race issue when it was more of an ethnicity issue.
And honestly, if you dig down even a little bit farther beyond that, having to, like, his targeting of Jews was just a very easy scapegoat, because throughout the course of history, the Jewish people have been easy targets for, like, blaming on everything from plagues to financial problems to wars to social corruption to, I mean, you name it, the Jews have been blamed for it. And so in this case, it was an easy demographic to target, because historically speaking, the Jewish people have been easy targets for lots of different cultures throughout the course of human history. And not to say that it's taking away from any other group that has suffered at the hands of another group, but it wasn't just about like how someone looked or what they believed in. It was just because, historically speaking, the Jewish people, Hebrews, are an easy target for people to get behind, blaming them for literally the woes of why Germany was not doing well. It was just an easy thing to point your finger at and go, them, it's their fault.
Wally, what do you think?
I think what Whoopi said was we talk about all the time how, like, just because we black over here don't mean we ain't subject to like a lot of these American, like, attitudes that may or may not be harmful sometimes. And her view of the whole situation is just a little bit like, I don't want to call it xenophobic, because it's not like, it's ignorant, because like over there back then, that's literally what it was. Like, when you're a bigot, you like create this narrative of the person you hate, and that's what they are. You know what I mean? They kind of just hold that picture of that in their head, and they were going around like using fucking paper bag tests, and just like it was a lot of like, is this person Jewish? Do they look Jewish? Send them here. If they don't, maybe send them there. It definitely was like that shallow. You know what I mean? So like, to say it wasn't about race, like, race is the made up construct between the two, race and ethnicity. Ethnicity is what you determine about somebody after you like study what they do, how they live. Race is the construct that was made up to separate in other people. So it was about race.
Just not in the kind of black and white way, the way we
Right.
think about race nowadays.
Right. So like, now the problem to me is that of course what she said, like, probably comes out of ignorance. She's been corrected on it. People have had, said what they had to say about it. But
Yeah, Whoopi was suspended for 2 weeks. It was worded as, it wasn't like ABC's doing it. It was very worded as, I'm the head of ABC, and I suspended Whoopi for 2 weeks. And like I said, I've made my point about that. I honestly, when it comes down to Meghan McCain, she's always managed to have a viewpoint that has been, is she even still on The View? Like, I thought she left The View.
I'm pretty sure she's still on air, right?
I think she's off The View, actually.
And see, I don't watch The View because to me it's just,
Like, 'cause
it's a bunch of people just screaming about shit that sometimes they don't really know anything about. So
I believe
I've
she's
never,
off The View, actually.
I've never really watched The View in the sense of like,
Because even when I saw that episode, now they rotate hosts on there all the time, but I could have sworn she left like last year to do something else.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, she was.
When did she leave it?
Okay, so she's not like the end of last year.
Okay.
Remember that now. So she's not on there now, but
Yeah.
like there have been times where she's said stuff about other groups of people just as bad or worse, and like the most anybody did was get mad on Twitter, and she's just there the next day. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a lot of people's problem. It's like, I mean, you know, cool. But you know,
But be consistent.
Like y'all doing that black woman shit to this black woman again.
But here's the thing: let's be honest. Also, Jewish people are a protected class in this country. When
What
you
do you
start
mean- what do
talking
you mean
about
by that?
when you start talking, if you say things that run counter culture to Jewish people, you get consequences for
I don't
that.
give a fuck about none of that.
No, I'm saying what
penalized
happened.
her in the wrong way. That's
I'm
really
saying
what
that
matters
but
here.
she
Like,
was penalized because she said something about Jewish people. If Meghan McCain said something about Jewish people, she would have got penalized the same way.
do you know that?
Yes, because she didn't. If she did, she would be. Nick Cannon got fired from Viacom for saying that black people were the lost sons of the Israelites and stuff. When you start talking about Jewish people in America,
What I mean, that shit.
but
Nothing.
he did say that.
I know he said that.
But he was fired because of it. You can say what you can dog whistle about race, about black people in this country all you want if you're white. You can dog whistle about it. You can't go on TV and start calling people the N-word because then that's what makes everybody uncomfortable. But you can bring your prejudices to TV and espouse them because a lot of people will think it's real. We are not a protected class in this country that way.
So do you mean protected in the sense of like socially or
We're protected by meaning money and resources will be pulled from your program, which is what all the networks care about, if you start saying things about Jewish people. That's why Whoopi Goldberg was suspended, because
everybody's
money and
problem
resources
is
were that.
Everybody's problem is that suspending somebody like that is some bullshit. That's literally where it stops. It don't really got nothing to do with like Jewish people being a protected class.
That's
like,
what she was
said
fired.
something
She was
offensive on
suspended for
TV,
that.
and she got suspended in a way worse way than somebody that sat at that same table with her wouldn't have gotten penalized for at all. That's why people are angry about it.
I will concede to your point if you show me a clip where Meghan McCain said something about someone that was Jewish, and then I will say I was completely wrong. And then that what you're saying makes total and complete sense. I have not heard her say that. I've heard her say other things that I find objectionably wrong. I have not heard her say anything about Jewish people. And if there is a clip out there, because the internet exists, I will eat my words.
It has nothing to do with Jewish people.
No,
It's
I'm
the fact
saying-
that it's the fact that she says something that offensive and offended a group of people. We're talking about in a general sense. Like those rules,
you're right.
you offend somebody like that, you say something offensive like that, and you get suspended. Cool, but the rules should be the same across the board.
It's
What
not
I'm
though.
saying
That's why
is-
I'm saying they're protected
No,
class.
it's not. I'm speaking to a place where we go towards a way where that's not the case. We're not trying to stick our feet in here the way it is right now. Like, I get it. Not important. We're going this way. Like,
But no, to you, I get what you're saying.
not-
But when you start talking about some of the things that she said that was offensive. Let's say she said something offensive about black people. Do we all vote together? Do we all pull our money and say we're not going to do this, or we're not going to like? People can say what they want about us because there are not the same level of financial consequences. Companies do not do things like suspend people or fire people without there being a demand from the money. Once the money starts getting affected, once sponsorship starts saying they don't want to be a part of something, that's when it happens.
Well, and that's, I think, okay, so I, like, listening to the two of you all make your points, like, I think you guys are arguing the same things, just you're coming at it from very different ways. Like, the issue is, if you're gonna penalize someone for saying something about a group, it doesn't matter what the race of the person is, it doesn't matter what the ethnicity of the person is, or the group that's being spoken about. If you're gonna say some negative or disparaging shit about one group, it needs to be across the board. Your consequences, despite who said it and whoever was the recipient, needs to be the same. Like, just because Whoopi said something about the Holocaust, yes, that was probably not the best thing to say about something that was so terrible, but at the same time, too, if anyone who's white is going to say something disparaging about any other group or any other event, they too need to have their feet brought to the fire and held accountable for the same thing that they're said. Now, granted, of course, That is not what
happens.
happens. That's not what happens, but that's what needs to start happening. Because if you're going to be, just to use your words, what's good for the goose needs to be good for the gander. We need to stop being a people that picks out when and where we decide to be outraged by stuff. Either we're going to be outraged by all of the bad shit, or we're not going to be outraged by any of it ever for any reason. That's the kind of stuff that needs to change in this country, where if we're going to say this person can't say this about this group because it's wrong, we also need to say this person over here can't say this about this group because that is also wrong. And they need to be having consequences that are appropriate, first of all, appropriate and consistent. That's the problem. There isn't anything that's appropriate or consistent. And that's something as a society we need to be working on from the ground up.
Stop treating black women like shit on TV networks.
Or just in general. Yeah. Just in general.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of evidence to show that America doesn't value black, even within health outcomes and all these kind of stuff. I'm not disagreeing with you.
That
people
needs to
need-
change.
I guess
That needs to change.
I'm
yeah.
not disagreeing.
Yeah.
I completely agree. There is a problem here that, yes, it could be multiple things all at once. We're about to get into Brian Flores. Brian Flores is doing a class action lawsuit against the NFL because they won't hire people that look like him. And there's going to be a Super Bowl played in a week now where there are black players on that team. And I haven't heard one of them say, we're not playing in that game. Not one. The league is 70% black. They were going to still keep playing games. They're not going to affect money. They're not. If you're not going to make power concede, power does not concede without a demand. If you're going to continue to financially benefit them and they don't feel like you're going to not participate, because none of them have said it. They recognize the problem just as well as anybody else do. They know when they go into those locker rooms who's the head, who tells them what to do. They haven't heard any of them say, I'm not going to play in this game. I'm going to make the power come to me and come to the negotiating table and be like, hey, I want more people that look like us in coaching positions. Haven't heard it at all. If you want people to listen to you, they're not going to do it just because they have a moral obligation to. It's because you forced them to. Mm. And that's my whole point.
I mean, that's really, no matter the subject, that's how change happens. Like, the masses have to be the ones that band together and go, okay, we're tired of this shit not happening the way it needs to be happening, and we need to change it. That literally goes, that can be said for anything across the board at any time. That's like the one universal thing that we can all agree on is like, one individual person doesn't make a difference, but it's the group unified, moving in one direction. That's what causes real change.
Like when women wanted the right to vote in all of the country, not just in certain states.
Yeah, one woman was never going to make that happen.
Yeah, but they had to do wild stuff like chain themselves to the White House gate or not eat and go to jail and not eat and go on hunger strikes.
Yeah.
People didn't do it just because it was the kindness of their heart. You have to be willing to push them to do it.
Yeah.
Like saying that this is wrong, recognizing they're a problem and making people do something about the problem are two distinctly different things.
Yeah, and it's something that fundamentally needs to change just as a whole. Like, it's something that needs to be more in the forefront rather than something that you've got to drag that out of people. So yeah, do lots of things need to change for the better? 100%. But, a lot of this stuff is not an overnight change, and a lot of it, unfortunately, the right person needs to be affected at the right time to get the ball rolling on that. And sometimes it sucks, but sometimes that just takes time.
To get to what you were talking about, because when you were talking about, when I just flippantly brought up the Brian Flores thing, but part of the reason why I think there's a bit of a disconnect is how things are applied. So things are applied as far as saying race. Mm-hmm. And people, like we were talking before the podcast, prejudice, bigotry, and race, we all think of those words as being conjunction at times. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily. Prejudice, anybody can be prejudiced. People have preconceived notions about how things should go all the time.
I think we even talked about that like a few episodes ago, how prejudice at its core is about survival, because you're making assumptions about something based on, at its very root, for survival.
And bigotry is once you've been perceived, like once it's like you thinking I can't swim, and me producing a video of me swimming or multiple black people swimming, and you being like, yeah, that's
Nah.
fake. That's not real. You guys can't swim.
Y'all are being held up by string or something. You
Yeah.
know, you got
Yeah.
floaties under your bellies or
Yeah,
something.
You
Yeah.
lack the ability to do it. This
Yeah.
is not real.
Right.
That's being a bigot.
Right.
Racism is the reason why it's hard to prove racism, and the reason why it's easy also to prove racism is because of the outcome. Outcomes prove racism. If you have a 32-team league and you institute a rule called the Rooney Rule to say, hey, you must interview minority candidates, but it's a token rule. You don't really have to hire them. You don't really have to take them seriously. And more importantly, by the fact that you have 32 teams and you only have one black head coach, whether you're intending to say this or not, you're saying black men cannot lead. The only thing they're good, this is where plantation, one thing that Brian Flores said is like, it's a plantation environment. Plantation environment doesn't mean these people are slaves. It means that you do not believe that they can be anything other than labor. They cannot be leaders. They cannot lead their teams. They look at the coach as the CEO of the team. So whatever happens, the coach gets the blame.
Whenever that happens to a black coach in the NFL, where they have a short stint with a team and they don't do terrible, but they get fired afterwards, their leadership always gets called into question. It's almost like these really big organizations of like really rich, powerful people across mediums all play from the same playbook, which is we don't really want you here, but we know we can't just straight up say we don't want you here because of the reason. So we
That would
have
be
to pull our
discrimination.
strings and make sure it looks like you wasn't good at your job.
That would be discrimination. And that's like at a private business, you can do everything up until that. Once it's proven that you are being discriminatory, that's against the Constitution, and you can't do that.
Right.
But as in a private business, the reason why it's hard to prove that is they have a right to hire whoever they want in whatever position. But what a class action lawsuit is meant to show is that you are going out of your way to not hire a particular group of people who want those jobs.
And who are like qualified for those jobs. Yeah.
Yes. But because, like I said,
I don't even know if he expects to like really get anywhere with this lawsuit.
I think
like,
he does.
If I'm in his position, like there's a chance, you know what I mean? Yeah, but I'm
because he's
thinking
never going to
also
work again.
on the other side of that, like even if it goes nowhere for me, like if I don't technically win, that puts that shit out there. You know what I mean? And like whether or not I'm going to, fail myself. That's out there. It's not something that the league can continue to really just like deny when a case got this big out of a situation like that and made the media in the way it did. So I don't know. Like,
So with the idea of him proving a point rather than him actually expecting to like come out on top.
I think it depends on who else
like
joins
in the
them.
case itself.
Because you do a class action lawsuit because you want multiple other people to share their stories. So like if he was doing it, if he was just going to be the full martyrdom, he would have done it separately. But when you say class action, you're trying to get multiple people involved, there are multiple cases of discrimination.
I mean, and
or
still,
racism
even with
in it.
that, even if it's a class action thing and they still don't win the suit, still sitting right there. It happened. Y'all can't deny it. Like, we see all the details around it, and like if they don't win, it'll really just be off some kind of technicality. You know what I mean? Because we all see what's going on here. We all know how this shit has gone. It's just that there's a legal process in the middle of it where, if you're really, really rich, you hire the best people that know how to like work it. You know what I'm saying? So like they've been sitting in a position of like telling people that shit's not as bad as we think it is, but like all the details that leak out from under the surface always say that it is. Everything about this country says that an organization that big and rich is treating black people like shit. And then we see like evidence of it. So like, why would we not believe that? You know what I mean? It's
so before we leave it, I'm just gonna get like a little say this one thing about it. So the reason why, like I said before, the reason why this will win or lose is because I said it's hard to prove, and I was saying racism is hard to prove mainly because it plays on prejudice. it reinforces so let's say, Mimi, you own a private swimming pool.
Okay.
You're like, oh, like as before mentioned, you're like, hey, Black people can't swim. So there's no reason for them to be here. Only reason why they would be here is to cause problems and disturb the other members. So I'm going to tell my person that I'm going to be in charge of recruiting members for my private swimming pool, hey, I'm going to need you to, I want you to recruit a certain kind of person. I want somebody who typically has a vacation home, who likes to ski in Aspen. Now, before, I didn't say a race there, but all of you guys just thought of who that person looked like and what that meant.
And the third thing was going to be a wine and cheese membership.
There you go.
Yeah. Before I said a word, you guys already know what clientele they're looking to serve.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it reflects what that looks like. Now, if you're now here's where racism is insidious. If you're a towel boy, you're the front desk clerk, you're the person who cleans the pool, you may think Black people can't swim too. You may not be saying it out loud, but that may be something. But if you're working in a place where there is a pool and you notice there's nobody there of color there, it reinforces your prejudice that already exists. And we all have unconscious prejudices that all of us deal with. So if you already think that and then it gets reinforced, everybody likes to feel like they're right. I like to feel like I'm right.
Yeah.
You like to feel like you're right. Everybody else. So that's what I mean.
And it's hard to see that as a problem. It's hard to see that idea, that way of thinking is a problem if it's never been problematic for you individually. And that's where a lot of people, that's where we have to start changing the way we think about certain constructs in society. Just because certain things have always been does not mean that they should still be, because, depending on how those things got started, it may be really, really toxic and it may be dangerous. And a lot of times it's just outright ignorant. And that's why we all have to start changing the way we think about what standards are and what normal is and what, what's accepted and what's not, and what's our business and what's not.
You ever been in a group of people, like everybody's talking about something like, talking about like stories with their first car, oh yeah, man, I broke down the side of the highway. Oh yeah, my car broke down at a stoplight. I was almost in the middle of the intersection. And then the next guy's like, yeah, man, I feel you. Yeah. Like that time I drove mine off a cliff when I was high on blow and got out the car and walked home. And then everybody's looking at him like,
what?
And he's thinking,
that's not
like,
a thing.
He's thinking like it's normal. Like everybody doesn't do that when they're a teenager.
Nope.
That's where we at with NFL culture and stuff like that right now. Because you got like this fraternity and like people act the way they act. And like there's definitely a reckoning happening right now because like they're still at the point where they think that like, oh, I mean, we can still put our boot on this and keep it quiet. Like people just complaining. It seems like as a whole, they really not grasping like how serious something like that.
They have to get the money out of their ears. They're like the
they don't
50
think
million,
that way. Like
50
the
million
way
people watch the NFC Championship game. Like the money's coming in, the advertisement dollars coming in, so they don't feel like they have to change.
Just aside from that, like being blind to the fact that shit is like because we getting down to the way like coaches talk to players and just like little microaggressions and shit like that like the culmination of they would not have on their radar like at all. Because once we dip into like what happened here and like say they win this suit and like it's established that like there's all this discrimination going on, then you start digging into like organizational structures, hierarchies, behaviors, team culture, office life, all that kind of stuff. And you find out that the shit's just kind of like
everywhere.
Every time we've had something uncovered about the NFL, we find out that same nastiness is just right up under the surface. You don't
think they have a chance of winning, do you?
Who?
You? Do you think they have a chance of winning? I should ask the question that way.
I have not even really thought about it.
Because it was just how you were talking about it. I was like,
I'm talking from a place where like, I know football culture, you know what I'm saying? And I know how some of these guys that have been a part of this for that long, we're talking like some of the coaches' cases like decades and decades. Like I know how these dudes operate, you know what I'm saying? And like they're at a place where like they've been stuck in their ways for so long that like while everybody else has moved past the fact that like that kind of like stuff is wrong, they're still in a place where they think that like, you know, in the pub, as long as the public sees it like that, it's cool, but I'm gonna still be me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna still act the way I do. And I think that's where a lot of these folks are that are high up in the league and organizations and stuff.
You know what I think that they would be afraid of?
What?
Is discovery.
What do you mean?
So everybody got really upset about the John Gruden situation, right? Because it was bigotry. People get uncomfortable with bigotry.
Yeah.
People don't get as uncomfortable with systems as long as they're orderly.
Right. Because like when you talk about a system, you gotta like explain all the details, and that shit's boring. Like, but when it's a story, you know, a real short story about an incident that happened and is easily digestible, yeah, like you can get mad about it because you understand it right then and there, right?
No, yes, the point you made is true, but let's say like a grocery store. No one would shop at a grocery store if stuff was just all over the aisles. The cereal was next to the fruit. No one would find that orderly, and no one would find that to be convenient at all. And especially if they had like, let's make it even more outrageous. They had the N-word on the wall. Everyone would be uncomfortable shopping at that store.
Yeah.
But let's say that store was orderly and neat, and every face you saw there was white, and everything was easy. The prices were low. Yeah, you would definitely stop at that store and not understand the underbelly of but like the janitor, how terrible they treat the janitor, and the janitor is someone of color. Everybody would be there. Like, people are not uncomfortable with the idea of racism because it's hard to see. People are uncomfortable when bigotries are involved. That's why people because it's aha. Look, see, that person said this thing, and we all can feel like we're morally superior, or we all recoil.
Yeah, you get to
because
see
it's
it
plain
right
and
there.
obvious.
Like,
Yeah,
you
but
don't
when
have
it's
to think
not-
about anything. You
but
don't
when
have to
it's not,
decide
it's
whether
illegal.
it's bad.
Right.
But when it's not, when it's not as obvious, and it just looks orderly and neat. Because that's why people hate protests. They don't hate protests because of what people are protesting. They'll tell you that. Like, yeah, I believe this is going on.
If protests look like the fucking Thanksgiving Day parade, like a part of section
people would
of
be
that,
lining
then,
up for that shit.
Like, all in line and, you know, like if
Little
protests were
flags
like
waving.
that, they'd be all over it. Yeah, but like they don't.
Yeah, they look very disorganized and chaotic, and people do not like disorganization and chaos in their life. They would and it challenges the very thing of the word you use,
Xenophobia.
The xenolistic thing that people do in America, where we're the best and there's no reason to ever question it.
Right.
And that's why people don't like protests. Everybody can see there's a problem, but they don't want it exposed at the need of their own comfort level.
Yeah.
Comfort is the main word.
And that's what I'm saying. But in order to change things, you must make people uncomfortable. And there lies the problem. And so that in there lies where it wouldn't matter how you protested. You could just put a fist up in the air and everybody would find it provocative just because it is a form of disorder and disorganization.
Yeah, like in these people's fan, it's like you putting your fist up in the air. The only reason I really give a shit about it is that you disrupted a goddamn football game, and that's what I care about.
Right.
They have the ability to care about something that much.
Yeah. You interrupted my entertainment.
You interrupted my feel good.
Like you have the ability to sit in your fandom as a fan of this team and just have your whole basement and your truck decorated and everything. And you have the ability for that to be even more important than your job for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like you have that ability to have that be more important than like letting the entire world know at every point when it makes a mistake that like y'all treat black people like shit and need to stop. You have the ability to not have that on your mind 24/7. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, of course you missing all that shit.
And to close it out, if a tree falls in a forest, yes, it fell. That meant something. It's not something just because it didn't personally affect you or you didn't see it or you didn't personally have the effects of it, it happened.
Nobody talks
And it
about
needs
all the wildlife that lived up in that tree. That
Yeah,
all
you-
the shit that was on the ground, they got crushed. The fucking Scrat was down there looking for his little acorn.
Yep.
Because those are a minority.
Yeah.
Those
You're
are
just like, well,
minority.
I didn't see
Yeah.
it. I didn't cut the tree down. It's,
It's like
not
all
my
the
fault.
people that die in explosions and car crashes and action movies and superhero movies and shit when buildings get destroyed. Like, nobody talks about them people ever.
Yeah.
The NPCs, they get murked.
Yep,
Like,
it's true.
One thing Chris always goes back and forth with me on is that, like, Batman has this no-kill code, right?
He's killed
But he
so
obviously-
many people.
She was like, he obviously killing people. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. Like, he literally doesn't. And then there's, like, all these scenes where, like, you know, explosions. He's fighting some superpowered villain and buildings are getting destroyed, cars getting blown up, all this other stuff. And, like, yes, people obviously died in that explosion.
Yeah.
Did you see them get crushed?
No, you didn't,
No.
and that's the thing. If you
That's
didn't
the
see
point.
it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's kind of what me and James's point has
Yeah.
been this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Is it just because you didn't see it happen or you weren't personally affected doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Exactly.
That's what that movie Free Guy was all about.
Yeah.
Y'all should watch that. That's good. Ryan Reynolds young.
So what was the next topic? What was it about?
Well, at one point you had said something about discussing alpha males and alpha females.
Yeah, and you have done some research on this.
I
and
have.
I would
Yes.
like for you to share it with the people.
Well, first let's discuss like why is it that you wanted to talk about this concept of alpha females and alpha males to begin with?
Well, I feel like, and I said this to you in the break room, I feel like people conflate what alpha male and alpha female are with being toxic. Well, especially with alpha males being toxic and being toxic masculinity, and they ascribe traits with being alpha that aren't necessarily, like I said, the definitions and stuff. They kind of use it colloquially versus it actually being what it was meant to be. So I told you, in today's society, alpha females are seen as, you know, are being championed. Like, yeah, I don't need this person for this. I got my own money. I don't need this XYZ. I don't need a man to tell me what to do. But in a business structure, these women get to be called the B word.
They're problematic. They're combative. Yeah.
And they get shut. And then an assertive, quote, air quotes, alpha man is because other people in positions of power like to see themselves in that same way. They promote them and push them up the ladder a little further because they feel like, well, this person's is a go-getter and he's going to seize what he wants and he's not going to let anything get in his way.
Well, that's just about feeding the patriarchy. That really doesn't have anything to do independently with alpha anything. That just has to do with continuing the construct of the patriarchy.
Within alpha males, there's a thought process that there is a hierarchy in there.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. But
Yeah.
so if you say patriarchy, what you're actually saying is a sort of a hierarchy within a certain system. And so that's why that's seen as, you know, desirable. But I think with some of the research you were saying is like, I feel like sometimes people think of these words, and because I think there's more than one type of person, but essentially what you're really talking about is alpha, sigma, and beta males and females, and people falling somewhere in between all of these three. And beta males get a lot of disrespect and all the rest of these things when that's not fair. I've even done it, and that's not fair. Everybody has a personality type. It doesn't make you better or worse than everybody. Everybody is a little bit more passive than others. Some people are followers, and some people want to go their own direction and they want to do their own thing. You can see that in any playground that you've ever gone about. There's some people who are a lot more passive. There's some people who want to find equality and find a consensus in there. Like, that's always been the case. Like I said, there's just certain personality types that are now starting to try to be, you know, legislated as far as socially differently now and seen as this is what we should be trying to aspire to. Women shouldn't just be, beta to their men and do whatever they want to do, you know, be subservient or whatever. Like, they have a say as well.
Yeah. Submissive is the word you're looking for.
Submissive to me doesn't mean the same thing. I think submissive means nice and cooperative to me.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue your understanding of that.
I mean, I think that's kind of to me, that's what submissive means. Because I think in order to become a master, you must submit. In order to be a effective follower, to be an effective leader, you must follow. These are like being a great leader. You should be able to say, "Hey, I know what it's like to be in the position of the person I'm telling to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I should know what it's like to be able to, if I'm working in a company, I know what it's like to be in the mailroom."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see that as being a terrible thing. But like I said, we could quibble over that. But
Yeah. Well, real quick, Wally, when you hear the term alpha male, what does that mean to you?
The whole it doesn't mean anything. The whole entire construct, I think, is bullshit. Alphas, betas, all that stuff. Was you about to like go through some research or something?
Well,
did it have to do with wolves?
Well, partially. So the thing with the whole alpha, beta, male, female, all that stuff, this is actually a misrepresentation of an actual. So there was a scientist. His name's Frans de Waal. I believe he's Dutch, and he studied social groups in different animals throughout the years, primarily like things like primates and wolves, but other mammals as well throughout the animal kingdom, and studied how their social groups are constructed, how their hierarchies and function, the male to female roles in those groups, how they interact with one another. And he wrote a book, and in that book he coined the phrase alpha male, alpha female, things like that. But with the understanding that those phrases are multi-layered, and it's not in a lot of ways now. People think alpha male is, a guy who can kick the most ass and get the most ass. Like for a lot of people, when they think alpha male, they think essentially a bully, more or less an accepted bully. And when they think alpha female, it's kind of the same thing. Someone who's like very aggressive, someone who, doesn't take any shit from anybody, someone who's independent to the point of almost obnoxiousness. And those things are not inherently correct, because what it's doing is it's flattening the term alpha in general. Because when you're talking about like wolf packs, for instance, it also kind of plays in with the whole like lone wolf thing and all that stuff. But when you're talking about wolf packs, a lot of times what you're seeing with the hierarchy, like let's say you've got a pack of wolves moving from one place to another. And what they do is a lot of times when they're traveling, they walk in a straight line, primarily to hide their numbers. And when you notice like the structure of who's walking where in the line, a lot of times you'll have the alpha female up in the front. And then as you go farther back down the line, you've got, the younger juvenile adults, you've got the little pups, you've got the elderly, and in the very back, more times than not, you have the alpha male who is protecting the rear flanks of the group from predators and ambushes. And a lot of times when people think of the terms like alpha male, it's someone who's the trailblazer, always out in front, always assertive, always, establishing their dominance over everybody. And while that is simply a piece of it, it's not the whole thing, because when you're moving over to groups of like primates, for instance, alphas are also the ones who get in the middle of fights and break up fights. They're the ones that are showing empathy to, let's say, the sick, the weak, the young. They're the ones that are willing to share their food with the group more easily than others. It's about being a gathering of all of the best parts of a person, in this case, a primate, a leader showing different dimensions that together make them the alpha. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one of these cases where, a lot of people out in the world right now, they are constantly saying, I'm an alpha, I'm an alpha, I'm an alpha. It would be the same thing as if like a king had to sit on his throne and constantly tell people, I'm a king, I'm a king, I'm a king. If you have to tell people and your actions don't demonstrate that, are you really a king?
I think isn't that what Tywin told Joffrey? He's like, I'm the king, and Tywin was like, if you have to say that, that's not true.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. Anyone who's a leader, if you are a leader, you should never have to say, like if I look at you and go, hey, is that guy a leader? You should be able to tell me, like if it's someone you know, based on their personality, their habits, you would be able to tell me, yeah, that guy's solid, he's a leader, or nah, that guy's a bitch. He's selfish, he's aggressive, he's ignorant, blah, blah, blah. So when a lot of times when people are saying alpha this and alpha that, they're using it in the completely incorrect context than what it was originally supposed to be. A leader, an alpha, is multi-layered. It's not just the most singular thing. It should be a gathering of the best parts of a person, or in this case, an animal, to better the group, to think outside of the self, not just to be self-serving, but to think about what's the best thing for my family, what's the best thing for my community, how do I give back in a way that's beneficial for everybody?
And to take it out of the animal world.
Before we exit the animal world, though, because I feel like we about to go further than we should before I bring this up. Because I was just a second ago, I was like, I believe the whole construct period is bullshit, right? Even after you went on through the second part, still bullshit. And the reason is because there's one detail that kind of got, I don't know if you mentioned it or not. The scientist who did that study, he wrote the book and all that, coined these terms. Not too long after that, he tried to clear up what he was doing in some of his research and tell people that, like, it doesn't exactly, it can't really apply one-to-one, probably unless we're talking about motherfuckers in jail, right? Because all the wolves he was studying were in captivity and non-related, period. So that, like, pecking order, the hierarchy, like, it was all, like, that's not a way that wolves usually exist. So, like, it's not really a thing you can study and apply elsewhere. When they went and studied wolves in the actual wild, they realized that, like, their packs are really, like, more like humans. The two alpha wolves you'll see are usually just the mom and dad. Wolves are very monogamous. They find lifelong partners. And you'll often see the two bigger wolves and then their litter of puppies, which doesn't get larger than like 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, those wolves grow up. They find their partners. They have their babies and stuff like that. So, like, just the whole entire, because I feel like no matter how, like, detailed or intricate you get with explaining how it works or what an alpha male or beta male is or isn't, like, you get away from the fact that, like, one of those terms is not going to describe, like, a type of person. You know what I mean? Like, there was a study done that, let's see, basically they were talking about the idea of an alpha and beta male and, like, had these lists of characteristics that are associated with each or whatever. And what they found was there was no correlation at all between, like, the individual traits that people seem desirable and what side they go on in terms of, like, a beta and alpha. You know what I mean?
Right.
In fact, a lot of the characteristics that people consider to be alpha turn women off in a way that they wouldn't want to have sex with that person or engage in a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know.
Like, if you're let's say you're the physically strongest person in the room.
I'm not buying any of this shit.
But you're as dumb as a box of rocks. It doesn't matter how attractive you are or how strong you are. If that's all you are, that doesn't leave much for desire and things.
I'm talking about somebody who is let's see, somebody who's straightforward and assertive can also be considered a beta, but, like, not by the conventional, like, definition of what an alpha or beta is. You know what I mean?
How's
because
that
different people have like, if you take all these different characteristics, like, there's not a correlation. There's not, like, a group of them that almost always go together. Like, that's not really a thing.
Right. It's about the mix of all of those different traits together. Because
I'm sorry, what you just said. If you say that what you just said again.
Like, there's not really
there's no cookie cutter way to say this is an alpha or a beta.
Yeah, there's not like there's not like 6-7 characteristics or whatever that you can always really apply to somebody that's an alpha or a beta. Like, with that, the whole entire construct kind of, like, falls apart in my head. Like, if you go around thinking of people as, like, alphas and betas and not, like, as, a kind person or somebody that's more assertive than not, like, you're not really getting to know who you standing in front of. You know what I'm saying? Like, I find it hard to talk about the whole alpha beta thing period because, like, it's bullshit. Like, I don't know. Like, traditionally, by those definitions, I would be considered a beta, right? But I will rearrange them letters real fast.
No. Actually, I would say you're more of Sigma. I wouldn't say you were Beta. Like that's what I'm saying. Like we're using. The problem is that everybody's more of a combination of multiple things. So what you were saying. So no one's purely anything.
No.
And I think I was
it's
trying,
about using your individual strengths
on the first part
to
of
be
it.
better individually.
I felt like that was important. I guess not really because of like what either you guys are saying, but like we all know how like the general perception of like that concept is. You know what I mean? We all know that most people do like ascribe that certain list of characteristics to alphas and to betas, and like when you act one of those ways, you get the label. You know what I'm saying?
And the idea being that those characteristic groupings are in relation to like what they were originally supposed to be are like how we apply them now societally is wrong. It's
like
completely
all that shit
wrong.
is just like bull. Like and it's easy to like we always talk about like buzzwords and terms. It's easy to label things like that because like it's easier for people to talk about it and easier for somebody else to know what you're saying when you're saying it. But like me, I don't know, maybe something different because like the we know that research like initially cannot really be applied to human life. But like we all like a lot of people still it's still there. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to wash this shit out.
The designations aren't as important as here's why
because like without it we could be talking about two different things basically. That's what I was trying to get to.
Ultimately what I'm trying to get to and what I was going to say, because the thing about it is that all right, when we had issues last year, I said one thing about I don't look to build consensus. That's not how I even roll. Both of you guys are like, what the hell? What the fuck are you talking about? We're in the group.
That's not going to work.
I made no sense to you guys. That made total sense to me, just in how my mind and my thought process. So no, nothing completely talks about anyone. That's not even what the whole conversation to me was even about. It was about this trying to understand why certain people think the way they do in certain instances. Because I jokingly called Mimi an alpha.
And I like balked at that.
Yeah,
I was like,
no,
don't call me an alpha. No.
But in certain situations, Mimi does like to take charge. There's certain times where she can be a little docile and where we're like, hey, we kind of want you to sing. You know what I'm saying? So no one's purely anything.
No.
My whole thing about it is sometimes when you're trying to understand why someone behaves the way they do in certain situations, is trying to figure out where someone can potentially, their mindset or their thought process. I hate going shopping, not because I don't want to go get things for myself. I hate comparison shopping. I hate indecision. People who have a mindset of, I'm a serve, I want to go get this thing, don't like questionable stuff and like, well, maybe I'll go to this store to determine whether I'm going to get this for $70 versus $50. No, I just want to go get the damn thing and let me go.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's like sometimes certain people's attitude towards something is geared towards how they just think about it in general. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily apply all across the board. And the thing where I was going to say, I was going to take it out of Animal Kingdom just to close out the point. There is an issue within the black community about, this whole red pill stupid stuff with Kevin Samuels and all the rest of that, right? And that there's this need, black women need to be submissive toward their men and all the rest of this stuff, right? My whole thing is that it's 1 out of every 3 young black men are in jail. That's and a lot, and me and you grew up in a place where a lot of people that we hung out with did not have their dads at home. Yeah. Who, like, I'm not saying a woman can't raise a man. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the ability to, and I'm not saying they didn't have positive male figures in their lives. But if a lot of the criticisms are that if we're not there in the household and all the rest of that, statistics show that you have better outcomes when both parents are there. And there are reasons for that. So a lot of this toxic stuff is coming from a position of a toxic male masculinity and all the rest of this stuff is coming from the fact that I was not able to know how the proper way to do something because I didn't have an everyday example to show me. And there's many different reasons why that is. But what I'm trying to say is when it comes down to this kind of situation, knowing how to do something properly is really important. And there's certain obstacles that come into play when we start talking about people who look like you and me, Wally. And I think trying to figure out these proper designations and making people feel comfortable with who they are, and realizing you don't have to be a reflection of what people think you are.
Yeah.
You could just be Wiley who plays the saxophone.
Yeah. By the same token, like
Yeah.
you can be a man without being dominant and domineering all the time, without being aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. By the same token, you can be like not what the picture of you is supposed to be.
Right.
And a lot of guys have trouble accepting the fact that like women aren't like a subservient race of people, but like our actual equals with a different gender. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's where a lot of this shit stems from. You listen to any guy who like vehemently disagrees with any of these kind of points regarding like equality, or they talk about any of these issues with like relationships, like we were talking about between, black men and women, like toxic masculinity and that kind of stuff. It always seems to come from that old attitude of like things were fine the way they were. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
and again, we're all subject to these same like American attitudes. Back in the 40s, like your wife was your property, and like there were sitcoms on TV where the main punchline was "To the moon, Alice."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like shit was like that was regular, and like people are just still having a hard time coming to grip with it. There's some of us that are just a little more behind than the rest of us. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where you hear a lot of the noise at.
I just think that wherever box you want to claim or want to be in, just as long as you're authentically within that and you're not trying to portray something that you're not, and that there's someone for you.
Yeah.
All these things, you don't have to be a certain way in order to, like you said, obtain a mate. You
Right.
can be beta or docile or whatever you, or build consensus or be assertive. Because not every woman wants to be told what to do, and not every woman wants to be. And here's the thing:
I wish
not
I
every woman.
I wish I would have gotten like read more and like saved more notes from that study I was reading from, because they talk about like all that stuff where they had an experiment where they have these list of characteristics. They craft a sentence about these guys out of those words. One of them is set up to be alpha. He has adjectives like, assertive, dominant, confident, and a few others. And then the other one for beta has like, reserved, there's a list of terms.
Like
I can't remember all now.
soft-spoken, emotional, things like
And
that.
they would
everybody-
like ask them to like, categorize each, and then they have like control groups where like some of them will only read the first 3 sentences of it that didn't have any of those adjectives. And like basically the long story short was like, those like designations usually like of alpha and beta and that kind of whole thing, it never really works out, and it's probably more important to just take a few extra seconds, and instead of like assigning an alpha label to somebody, you think about the fact that they're confident, they're assertive, they might also be reserved, but the confident and assertive part are the ones that like the characteristics you would normally apply to like an alpha person, but that's not all that person is. So,
And there's more than one way to lead.
Oh yeah,
Ultimately.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
There's more than one way to lead. And what I was going to say was like, it was just a situation of there's more than one way to lead, and not everybody's looking for the same thing. And some women don't always want to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
They want somebody to like, hey, I'm making decisions everywhere else in my life. You decide what we're going to eat tonight. Or it'd
some
be nice.
households, like the man
It'd be nice
decorates
to
the
do that.
house, like
Yeah.
he's got the aesthetic eye. He's
Yeah.
into the cleaning and shit.
Yeah.
Like
So yeah, there's no bad way or bad way to express yourself, and unless it's harmful. But within that sense, you just got to find the person that matches with you, that makes sense with you.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then it does all these terms, like you said, don't matter at all.
Yeah.
It's just you just work. But these terms only come into play because sometimes people think they want something. Like we used to work with someone who thought they wanted a certain type of guy, wrote it down,
Yeah.
and then that person didn't end up looking like the person they ended up
Yeah,
with.
you said exactly what I was about to get into. Like,
Yeah,
you got to
yeah.
know yourself. You
You
got to
gotta-
learn
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes what you end up with isn't what you wrote down on the sheet of paper.
Right.
And maybe that person, matter of fact, maybe the person that you wrote down on that sheet of paper, or that person, the ideal person, doesn't want you.
Yeah, there's also that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, these
Incels.
things. Yeah. So yeah.
She don't exist, dog. Go outside. Look, go outside.
Let the sun hit your skin.
Wear lotion. You know what I mean? Like, go out in public and stuff. It's
Quit bathing in Axe.
It's gonna be all right.
Yes.
Like you're not gonna get your ass beat. Like nobody's gonna make fun of you for real, just all some random stuff. Like you might even like talk to a girl and she might think you're pleasant. You know, just drop the dick act. Stop listening to people like Joe Rogan and The Rock.
Or anyone who's got a podcast that says every time a woman has a baby, her value decreases.
Yo, talk about. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why did you just like? I could
Why
see
did I
taking
throw
a
The Rock in
yeah.
there?
Wait, The Rock?
I could see. I
boy.
could see why you took out Joe Rogan. I mean,
We will
said
get
stuff.
into that later.
Okay.
But
That's for
Dwayne
another
The Rock
show.
Johnson is a lot closer to being a Joe Rogan than you think.
Okay, yeah, like, can we get into at another podcast?
Yeah, we'll have to bring that into another show.
Because I was like, because Joe Rogan,
This was brought to my attention
Oh my
like last
God.
week.
we didn't get into Joey because Joey,
Let's-
man,
We don't have
We'll
to
save
do
them
that.
for another
Yeah,
show.
that's-
Let's save them for like next week.
Yeah.
Neil Young is bringing down the whole operation over there.
Man,
Neil, take everything down with you. Everything down in flames.
And after that Planet of the Apes comment, sir, you deserve it. So, do you have a word this week, Mimi?
The word of the week is dacryorea. Let me spell
Huh?
it. Dacryorrhea. Dacryorea.
Is that like a drink?
No.
hold on,
no.
say it. Spell that first part again.
Dacryorrhea. Dacryorea.
Something about like. Well, no, that's weird. I was gonna say something about like expelling cold energy, but that doesn't even make fucking sense because
Okay,
energy
is
gets
it-
warmer? Like,
Dacryorea.
Is it like a proclamation on a document?
No, it is not. No.
Alright, then I'm
does it have to do with like some kind of like some kind of like waste product or like expelling something, getting rid of something, throwing something away?
You're on the right track, and I'll give you a hint. It's a medical term.
Yes, I know that.
Oh.
I know
It's
that.
a medical term. But you're
There you go,
actually
using Latin words.
you're
again.
on the you're
I can't get the first part. That's what I'm having trouble with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Spell it one more time. Sorry.
D-A.
Uh-huh.
Oh shit. Dacryorrhea. Dacryorea.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Okay, and you know, it is an excessive flow of tears.
Tears. Okay, because diarrhea.
It's an excessive flow of other things.
Yeah,
but
exactly. That's where I was going with it.
Dacryorea is an excessive flow of tears. So if you're someone whose eyeballs are constantly watering, you've probably got dacryorea.
That was a good one.
But I liked your thought process. I could hear the
getting there.
gears grinding in your head.
I was getting there.
You were close. I'm
I'm gonna get one of these days. Ooh, I gotta play Wordle today.
Oh yeah, I did the one that you sent me, by the way.
Oh, you did?
I got it in 5 guesses.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like,
All right,
yes.
all right.
But anyway, that was the word of the week. Dacryorea.
And this was a spirited episode.
Yeah.
It was. Yes.
And were you nervous? You okay?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Just you asshole. All right. Remember our plugs at the beginning of the episode. Please follow us there.
Don't expect them to do that. Just say it again.
Yeah, I was getting ready. That's what I was getting ready to do.
And if you don't remember,
What to say?
if you don't remember,
No, you know what made me nervous? I just felt Mimi's look. How do you do it? Tell me how you make these. How you do the.
what are you doing with your hands? What are you doing?
What is this?
What are you rubbing?
My knuckles.
Are you about to like beat
you
up
were-
some dough? Need some dough and make bread? Like what is this?
Why?
No, I was just saying. I felt like.
And why do you think I do that?
Because it was pressure. She was like, "Tell me how to do it," since I'm not doing it right, kind of thing. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week, and have a good day.
Bye, guys.